Hi, I'm Shannon. Here is Sabrina, my friend, and she has invited me to Italy, and we are talking about some of the things that happened to her and her family related to estate planning and really some of the things that can happen at the end of life. Hi, Sabrina.
Hi, Shannon. It's so good to see you.
So here we are on the Amalfi Coast. We're so lucky today. It's a little overcast, giving us a little time to chat about some of the things that happened at the end of your mom and your stepdad's life. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
So my parents passed a couple years ago during the pandemic. They were married for 33 years, very happy together, and they amassed a lot of wealth during their time together. My siblings and I, there was 6 of us total between his side and mine, were kind of unaware of the wealth that they had. We knew that they had money, they were able to travel, which was really exciting for them, and we were happy that they were happy together. And but towards the end, they started to lose their faculties, a little bit of...
How old were they when they died?
88 and 87. So they died within 9 months of each other.
And how long were they together?
33 years.
And when you say they amassed some wealth, how did they do that?
Well, my stepfather was a doctor for 60 years, actually. They actually owned a lot of real estate. When they got together, they started to buy properties and sell properties. And they also had an assisted living home back in the 90s before it kind of really got popular. So they did well with that.
And were they mostly their own managers with regard to their money?
They were.
Okay.
They were.
And at some point, did they draft an estate plan with an attorney?
They did. We know that they did over the decade in the first couple years that they were married, but I know that at least 15 times during the 33 years, they would change their will, they would change their trust because they were mad at somebody or they got some new idea what they wanted to do, or maybe they amassed more wealth and they needed to change it. But I was like, why are you changing your will again? I didn't understand it. They didn't tell us what was in it, but they told us they were changing it.
At any point were you brought in by the estate planning attorney or the elder law attorney who was managing their asset planning?
No.
Okay.
Never.
Did you ask questions about their assets?
Not really, no, because they were secretive. If we tried to ask, it wasn't a conversation. You don't talk about money. And, my mom would just say, oh, we have loads of money. Okay. And she started to say that towards the end, and she actually started to say that to strangers. Okay. We're like, Mom, shh, don't say anything.
Yes. Okay. So at any point, did they get scammed or exploited?
Absolutely.
Okay, tell me about that.
One time my mom said, oh, my husband, he invested in this thing for healthcare, and we lost $400,000.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh my, what do you mean? And she's like, I don't want to talk about it.
How much do you think they lost over their lifetime with regard to exploitation or scams?
I would say between 500,000 and $1 million, at least. Maybe more. We just don't know. Okay.
And at any point, did anyone engage in exploitation protection with them, like using a Ulysses clause in their trust? We talked about a Ulysses clause.
Yeah, I don't believe so. No.
Okay. All right. And at any point during their estate planning, when they were changing their plan so much, did anybody ever come to you guys and say, it's time to, start to use successor trustees or agents under power of attorney to manage their assets?
No.
Okay.
We had to go to the attorneys and say, our parents are starting to fail mentally, physically. Can we see the trust? You know, can we invoke it? Can we go to the so my sister had to get involved. My stepsister had to get involved on her dad's side, and we had to talk to each other and then tell our parents, can we go to the lawyer, please?
Yeah, that's really hard. It helped as well if you'd had a healthcare advocate on board at an early time.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. They did have long-term care insurance.
Yeah, tell me about that.
So they should definitely talked about that because they were, two separate families. They kind of knew, hey, not one side of the family is going to take them both in.
Right.
They knew at some point they were going to need care, but when it got to the point where they were leaving the stove on, they weren't taking the correct medicines.
Yeah.
They're like, we don't want to go into a home yet. And we're like, you don't need to go into a home. We can bring you care in. And they didn't realize that. They just bought this long-term care insurance thinking they had to go to a home when they actually could have had care brought in. So we did bring in care at some point because we're like, we're not going to send you to a home. we're going to bring care in.
And that's because somebody looked at the long-term care policy, right? Who
Yes,
was it?
My sister.
Okay, so you look at the long-term care policy, you understand what it covers and what it doesn't.
Yes.
You understand every day that it's going to cover a certain amount. You understand that it's going to cover facility care, but it's also going to cover at-home care. Those were the things that you actually reviewed the policy to figure out what the long-term care policy covers and what it doesn't cover.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So knowing your estate planning attorney or your elder law attorney, knowing what your long-term care policy covers, what it doesn't cover, having long-term care policy, having a healthcare advocate, working together with your family before things get bad. All of these things could have helped your situation.
Absolutely.
But